Hey guys, so I'm going to be doing a video voiceover record on a game that I played today. The reason I'm doing a video voiceover record is because when I recorded the actual video, my voice was a robot. So we're going to do an analysis of a game that I played earlier today in 2 times, which I know a lot of you guys have been missing. By the way, welcome back to the channel, Scoundrels. I hope you're all doing well. If you're a new watcher and you like auto chess content and you like mobile gaming content in general, please feel free to subscribe. It really helps me out and I'd be forever thankful. And for those of you that have been subscribed this year in 2019, you've made this one of the best years of my life. Honestly, you guys have been such an amazing impact for myself, my son Rupert, my whole family in general. Thank you so much, guys. You're amazing. So let's start to talk about the game. This is a game where I decided that I was going to give in finally and think about playing Glacier Knights, because you can see I picked up a Hell Knight and then I added a Frost Knight to it and thought, well, we could run with Glacier Knights at this point. So I finally kicked the bucket, said, screw it. Glacier Knights is something that's worth considering. I avoided it out of principle for far too long now. Let's see where we go. But I wasn't really picking up any other really important knights for Glacier Knights in the first few rounds. I wasn't picking up Lightblade Knight, wasn't getting any more Hell Knights, wasn't getting any more Frost Knights. So it was like a tenuous link to Glacier Knights here. What I'm doing in the early game right now is just picking up as many 1 costs as possible. I generally tend to favor 1 costs on my bench in the early rounds, because the most important thing, as most of you will know, is you should be trying to get as many pairs as physically possible. Like, you should be trying to get as many 2-stars on the board, and 1 costs are the easiest to 2-star and also the best to sell back for the same money that you invested into them. It costs you 3 gold to get a 2-star 1 cost. So my Skybreaker level 2 here, he cost me 3 gold. I can sell him for 3 gold. It costs me 6 gold to get a 2-star, a 2-cost 2-star, but it only sells for 4 gold. So you actually lose 2 gold when you sell off a 2-cost 2-star. It's a bit of a tongue twister to say, isn't it? So I saw a double. I obviously got a God of War 2 here, which is great. Then I saw a double Desperate Doctor in the shop, and I thought, wait a second. Not only is Desperate Doctor obviously great for Glacier Knights, but actually this could give me a sideline kind of looking at potential god builds, and I haven't played a god build in quite some time. I was rewarded by getting a 2-star Desperate Doctor, and I decided at this point there were a couple of avenues that I was likely to explore. So, looking at my bench and looking at what I've got on the field right now. 2-star Desperate Doctor, 2-star God of War, got my 2-star Skybreaker, so in general, I've got a really good frontline mixed with a lot of CC that is a very malleable composition. Like, it can do a lot of things. And then on the bench have 2, I get them both on this round, and then on the bench have a Ogre Mage, and also had a Gersis Ranger. So there are things to consider here. Ogre Mage could be used to potentially go into Mages, and I could use the Gersis Ranger with a look-in at a 4 Gersis Hunter build, which has been very popular recently, or I could go for a classic 6 Hunter God of War frontline. So I'm essentially coming up to round 10, keeping my options open. Now, this is not the same as not having an idea of what my composition wants to do. This is just keeping my options open, which is what I did here. One thing that you'll notice is that my economy for my usual game is not particularly good by round 10. Usually by round 10, I like to have 20 to 30 gold. I'm a little bit behind that right now, but that's okay for 2 reasons. The one reason is for exactly what I said previously. I don't know what my composition is doing right now, so obviously it's important that I keep my, I keep my options open by buying units, which is obviously going to impact my economy. The second is that if I'm putting myself in a strong position, as long as I'm hitting 50 gold by round 13, 14, or 15, I should be in a fairly okay spot. I've also got the potential to level up if I want to, but I've got 5 2-stars on the field right now, so having a slightly dented economy is okay, because the general trade-off in auto chess, and you'll notice this pretty much all the time, the general trade-off in auto chess is always economy for health in almost every sense of the word. Unless you are win streaking and you're the guy that's high rolling, if you are middling or you're lose streaking, your general trade-off is always economy for health. So in my case right now, I'm trading a little bit of economy, but I'm keeping my health in a really good spot. You can see I'm at 80 HP by 40 gold. My barometer for success on economy versus HP is usually like 50 gold at 50 HP. If I'm lose streaking, like hard lose streaking, and I go for a 50 gold rush, if by round 11 or 12 I've got 50 to 60 HP and I'm at 50 gold, that's a really, really, really good success in my books. Obviously things change a little bit in that context. When, let's say, for instance, you're middling, but you have 50 gold by round 14 at 50 health, that's not as good. But for me right now, I'm at 50 gold and I have 72 HP. So that's about 20 more than I'd expect to have for getting up to 50 gold by about round 13. And although I'm losing every round at this point, now is when I can start to say, cool, I've got 5 gold interest per round. I'm going to start throwing crap tons of money into experience. Now, the reason I'm doing that with this specific build is because, obviously, at Gods, level 8 is your important level. Level 8 is where you now get a 2% chance of finding a God of Thunder, and with the reduced experience costs, with 4 gold for 4 gold for experience instead of 5 gold for experience, you can essentially rush level 8 very quickly. So I'm buying a couple of units here. What I'm doing right now is I'm buying units that I think will be useful for Gods. So obviously I'm going up against some Glacier Knights in the lobby, so there was a thought process in my mind that was like 3-star Ripper in Gods is very good in Glacier Knights. I bought Lord of Sand because I know that his CC is invaluable when you're playing Gods a lot of the time, especially if you can get him to level 2. And obviously I am hard investing into Desperate Doctors, because Desperate Doctor is a really, really, really good unit in Gods too. So you can see I'm now at level 7, which is fantastic. I'm level 7 by round 16. Some people do manage to get to level 8 by round 16 if they've managed to get to 50 gold super early, or they're win streaking and they want to maintain their win streak by round 16. But for me, being level 7 by round 16 is perfectly fine. You can notice that I'm cycling through my items here because I'm very well aware that I've now got a Orb of Refresh. So, the thing about this lobby is, and I'm sure you'll see it at some point when it pops up, and you've probably noticed it with the people that I've been playing. The thing about this lobby is that there are a lot of mages, and so therefore an Orb of Refresh and a Storm Shaman is going to be absolutely necessary. And Storm Shaman needs to be level 2 as well. Storm Shaman level 1 is actually really bad. Storm Shaman needs to be level 2, and if Storm Shaman is not level 2, I probably just lose the game. So if I get to, let's say, one second, my wife is playing a really loud podcast. Cool, thank you, Emily. If I get to sort of sub 30 HP and I don't have a Storm Shaman yet, that's when I'm thinking about rolling my entire gold away to get to a Storm Shaman, because I have the Orb of Refresh for it, so I need a level 2 Storm Shaman to make my build work. And you can see these mages without a Storm Shaman are absolutely crushing me. Like, I actually don't stand a chance versus the mages in this lobby if I do not have a Storm Shaman, at least level 2, on my front line. One second. Sorry guys if you can hear that. Sorry if you can hear the podcast. I think my wife is just taking the dogs out for a walk. So I actually rolled a little bit further than 50 gold here because I was slightly concerned about my HP. I didn't want to roll it all away, but I decided that I needed to roll a little bit of it away to make sure that I could at least get some upgraded units on my lineup, and I did manage to find a Lord of Sand 2 and also found a Ripper 2, which is obviously very important. I'm also now looking towards getting my Storm Shaman, of course. I go for the Devastator over the Tsunami Stalker here because he's a little bit safer, and Orb of Refresh on Devastator is a really powerful tool. It'll allow me to beat it'll allow me to beat players that I probably wouldn't be able to beat without my Storm Shaman. Yeah, it might even give me a better matchup versus some mages, because mages aren't particularly good against physical damage, so having just the massive explosive damage of a Devastator is pretty important. So now I've decided that I'm actually going to roll a bit more extensively at this point. I find one Storm Shaman, I also find a couple of extra God of Wars, as well as then also picking up the Thunder Spirit, because something that you may have noticed right now is that I'm actually in a situation where I don't have the mage bonus on my side. So actually Storm Shaman needs to be combined with the mage bonus most of the time, and I don't actually have the mage bonus on my side right now. It's something that I heard because your podcast was going. So I don't have the mage bonus on my side right now. So that's what I'm looking for, ultimately. I also have the Warlock bonus now, which is obviously really important. And I do eventually find the Storm Shaman too, which is fantastic. So that's really, really good. Is Rupert asleep? Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm going to quickly go grab a drink of water, guys, because I need it. Okay, so here we go. At this point in time, we've now got a 3-star God of War, a 2-star Storm Shaman with a Orb of Refresh. I've now also picked up a God of Thunder and also a Thunder Spirit, so that now allows me to get my Mage bonus in there. I'm actually going to take out the Lord of Sand to make sure that happens. And now we're actually in a really good spot. Like, now we're in a spot where it's like, okay, let's just relax. We probably beat most people at this point. We don't need to take this. We basically don't need to rush this. My main goals at this point now are going to level 9 to add the Lord of Sand back in. Maybe getting a level 2 Thunder Spirit would be fantastic as well. And obviously getting my 3-star Desperate Doctor would be great also. But we're actually in a very comfortable spot as a God player at this point in time. I can essentially relax, build an economy back, and look to try and get back in the game in a more natural way. Because up until this point, I have been kind of desperately trying to get my build online, but now we actually have the anti-mage part of my build ready to go. I've also picked up a Claw Wand, which I'm going to give to my Storm Shaman, because that's going to allow him to be unaffected by CC, and that should allow him to just essentially almost always beat mages. Storm Shaman is like the MVP versus mages right now. What you're going to see here is actually his God of War his God of Thunder actually got a really big God of Thunder ultimate off, and there is some natural variance with God of Thunder. So that's the last mage matchup that I think you're going to see me lose this entire game. He just happened to get a really big God of Thunder ultimate off, which for a God of Thunder 1 is a little bit rare. But for the most part, I'm not too worried about losing to the rest of the mages. Like, I just don't think that my build is particularly susceptible to mages with an Orb of Refresh Storm Shaman. I think if I didn't have the Orb of Refresh on my Storm Shaman, there was a very real world where some of these 6 mage builds could have beat me. But because I had the Orb of Refresh on my Storm Shaman, it was perfectly fine. So as soon as I get the gold to go to level, as soon as I get the gold to go to level 9, I do, to add the Lord of Sand back in. Lord of Sand is really good in certain matchups when you're playing gods. Those matchups are assassins and knights. Lord of Sand is really, really good in assassins and knights in that matchup with gods. Not so good versus hunters because you can't get behind the damage dealers of hunters, and isn't actually that good versus mages other than to distract them. Something that you will notice that my Lord of Sand does is that he actually jumps and distracts a lot of the mages in the back line, which keeps my front line a little bit safer. So that is something that you can see here. Not so good versus hunters because my Lord of Sand can't actually get to the dwarf sniper. So you can see he's kind of useless, just kind of sitting at the back there. But almost every other matchup, it's perfectly good in. And you can see this is a really tense lobby right now. There is an assassin player who doesn't have a 3-star shadow crawler. That is something that is important to note because assassins in general are bad until you get a 3-star shadow crawler. Not bad, I mean assassins can still do very well, but what I will say is that in general assassins are not particularly good until you have a 3-star shadow crawler, especially versus gods. What I did manage to find here was a halberd, which essentially the enemy unit with the most items or the most attack damage is one of the two. He gets disabled from essentially doing anything for the first few seconds of the fight. So that's what I was able to achieve by getting that and putting it on my God of War, and that gives me a better matchup versus the assassin player, and it gives me a better matchup versus the hunter player, both of which are actually really difficult matchups for me in general when I'm playing mages or even god mages. Positioning wise, I'm going to talk about my positioning here because it's not that complicated with gods. realistically. You just want to corner position everything. Source goes in the back corner because she's got the most attack range, so she doesn't block anyone in, and she's kind of a useless unit, so that's okay. God of War obviously goes at the front to try and soak as much damage as possible. I then want to put my beefy units on the outside, so I put my 3-star Desperate Doctor on the leftmost of my corner, just simply because he is the beefiest. And then obviously Lord of Sand needs freedom to jump out without actually opening up gaps in my composition versus Assassins, so that's what I've done there. Soul Reaper is on the front line because he's strong in terms of health, and so he's a bit of a tank. And I basically put my Storm Shaman just behind my God of War to protect him as much as physically possible, which is obviously really, really important. You might notice that I put my God of War just in front of my Storm Shaman. That's because it's specifically to protect against the Hunter player. It actually doesn't matter where I put my God of War realistically when I'm playing against the Assassin player. For the most part, the God of War is in the position that he's in simply because he does better versus the Hunter player in that position by keeping my Storm Shaman as safe as physically possible. So we knock the Assassin player out, he's gone now, and now it's just me versus the Hunter player. I was hoping for a potential Orb of Refresh for my God of Thunder so I could make this a double Orb of Refresh game, but that wasn't the case. I've also put a Venom in at level 10, just because Venom actually... once Venom actually gets his skill, he reduces the attack speed, or attacks the unit with the most attack speed most of the time, and reduces their attack speed and deals significant damage to them. That's why I've put Venom in the comp. It also doesn't ruin my God bonus, which is really important. I managed to find a couple of really, really good defensive items, which is including Heart of Tarask and another Dragon Blood Axe for my God of War, which makes him nigh on unkillable at this point. And so I'm just going to maintain the position that I'm in. One of the things that I think about positioning is because it's always a bit of an experiment. One of the things about positioning is that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, essentially. And my positioning has not been, in any way, shape, or form, broke in this game. So I find a Devastator, by the way, and that's obviously a good reason to sell the Venom. Really no point keeping Devastator over Venom over Devastator. Devastator's a great unit. And something else that's happened here, which he's had to do because of the Storm Shaman, and I fully appreciate why he's done it, but it has made a certain aspect of my composition better than it should have been. He's essentially allowed my Lord of Sand to work versus Hunters by splitting up. So that's the combo of Storm Shaman and Lord of Sand that's actually completely not thought of. You have to split up versus Storm Shaman, but if you split up, it instantly makes Lord of Sand that much better. And so having Lord of Sand and Storm Shaman in your God comp when you're going to get up against someone that's split up is so powerful, and you saw it right there. Allowed me to carry to victory, and we finally got a God win and got another win in Ranked, which is really good because Ranked tilts the absolute living daylights out of me. So there we go.